I live in 46 Walsh Lane in Westbury, New York. I am 50 years old. I have been a lifelong resident of Carr Place. I graduated Carr Place High School in 1983. I have two children. One is Matthew Jarvis, who graduated in 2013 from Carr Place, and I have Gregory, who is in 7th grade in Carr Place Middle School. My wife, Elizabeth DiNicola, graduated in Carr Place High School in 1982. And she currently owns a dancing place in Carr Place for 33 years. I started to work at the Port Authority 30 years ago, 1986. I started off at Kennedy Airport, and then my roles and responsibilities have grown. I currently am an IT manager for the Port Authority Law Department. I maintain and operate all their computer systems, hardware, software, and litigation support services. I've been at the World Trade Center. I moved there in 1988. Was my first assignment in the World Trade Center coming from Kennedy Airport. At that point, we owned and operated the two buildings in the 16 acres. We occupied one World Trade Center at the time. And when I moved there, we were on the 62nd floor. Subsequently, a few more years later, I moved into the law department and became the IT managers. So at that point, that would bring us probably just before the 1993 bombings, where when I was at the time, I was in the law department. And in 1993, there was an explosion in the basement of the World Trade Center, of the Tower 2, when somebody drove a van down and they exploded. February 28th, 1993, approximately 12:18, I was actually out to lunch, coming back with Chinese food. My favorite Chinese food was down there, and I was holding it, and I remember coming in, and into the corridors, or into the lobby level, there was a large explosion. You didn't see nothing, you really didn't see anything either, you just felt the floor shake. So at that point, everybody shifted off to the side and kind of congregated and waited until we knew what was going to happen, or we were waiting for direction. At that point, everybody vacated outside on the West Side Highway, and we waited for further instruction. And then further down the road, we were relocated actually to 7 World Trade after that, until they fixed the basement, where we began our business continuity, our disaster recovery. For people to, where people were deployed, we had work shifts, we had temporary computers, temporary workstations, temporary staff there where we were working for, trying to, assess the damage. And as part of the law departments, the function of the attorneys was to see what kind of litigation was, business interruptions. We had several other large companies occupy the building at that time. So we were probably out of there for about 6 months, until they did a heavy-duty cleaning. And I remember being escorted into the building by the cleaning people, where they would actually wipe down, because a lot of the soot came from the convectors and the ducts. So everything kind of got like a thin film of black soot. And then at the cleaning people they hired, kind of wiped all the computers down and everything. We were probably back in there probably about 6 months to maybe 7 months later. We were back into that World Trade Center. So now fast forward, at that point I continued my career in the law department, several promotions and moves and stuff, but I basically stayed within the law department, and my responsibilities had grown on to, like I said, today I'm the IT manager. Fast forward to 9/11. It was a Tuesday morning. Usually I arrive at work around 8 o'clock. I commute in from the Long Island Railroad, and then we took the subway down. That Monday night, I clearly remember that the New York Giants had played a Monday night football game, because there was a bunch of early birds that got in there together, and I was on the 68th floor of Tower 1 on the north side. So for those that seen the pictures, that was the first building that got hit, and it came over 7 World Trade Center. And the reason why the plane had to go so high is because it had to clear 7 World Trade. The building, the tower actually got hit between the 89th floor and the 95th floor. So when we moved, when I was there, it was probably about a half a dozen. It was around 8 o'clock. When I was in my office, I have a window seat so I could actually look out and see the plaza. And there was a plaza between the two buildings that actually had a fountain, and they used to have music during the summer. So I would occasionally look out there in the morning. I was finishing my breakfast, and then there was this large sound, and the whole building, everything just slid off of my desk. The whole building just swayed back and then snapped back. And at that point, I got out of my office, I went into the hallway, we all looked around, and then went back in my office, and I seen all the debris coming out through the windows, through onto the plaza. So at that point, we all congregated into the hallway, and there happened to be a maintenance guy there who was on a walkie-talkie, and he had said it was a small plane that hit the building. So we had thought, my first initial reaction was, all right, this guy's drunk and he hit the building. I thought it was a small pilot or small, commuter plane or something, not realizing what happened. So what we did is continue to get our thoughts together. So we basically all decided to take the stairways, and there were 3 stairways at the time, A, B, and C, and I think I took B, and we all decided to go down. As we were going down, some of the folks stayed, some of them went to a different stairways. There was probably about a dozen of us total on the floor who out and congregated. So about 3 or 4 of us went one way, 3 or 4 other people went the other way, and another third went the other way. So as we were coming down, we still didn't realize what was happening. I had no idea that the magnitude, we didn't know the second building got hit. I had no knowledge. The only thing I had at the time, and they were beepers. And I don't know, any kid know what beepers are. You could text somebody like a message and it would vibrate and say, call me at 911 or whatever, call me. That didn't work. So grabbed our stuff, we went down, continued to proceed down, and every 4 or 5 flights, they'd say stay to the right, and 4 firemen would come up, and they'd have their hoses and their gear ready to go up. Not knowing what was going on, we knew it was above us, but there were really no announcements. There were sirens and lights going crazy, but there were no announcements by saying, stay, don't stay, it's only a fire. There were no public address announcements, so it was kind of, as we kept coming down, there are other floors that come into the floor. So there's re-entry floors into the stairway. So as we go down 4 or 5 flights of stairs, there would be another group of people coming in from another floor. Say we got down to 21, group of people would come down. We walked down to like 17, it would come down. So we started on 68, made it all the way down to 1. At that point, we still didn't know what was going on. And when we came out, we were actually on Broadway out in the concourse. And if you guys look at old pictures, there used to be a ball, a water fountain, and when we came out, they told us, don't look up, don't look up. So the first thing we all did was look up. I had seen people strapped in their seats. I'd seen bodies, I'd seen body parts, legs, arms. There were several people I'd seen in their the plane seats with their seatbelt on, with their heads missing and their arms missing and their legs missing. Debris all over the place. On the floor was engine parts, papers, burning debris. So all that stuff came, shot out through the window and down. When we came out, they walked us underneath the concourse and back out right by Century 21 now, which is Broadway. Broadway and probably Liberty Street or Canal, not Liberty yet. And that's probably about 45 minutes from around 8 o'clock, 8:15-ish is when we went down. I think the plane hit around 8 o'clock, 8:30-ish, so we got hit, and then I'd say around 45 minutes later we had gotten down to the concourse. And then that's when I seen people jumping, because apparently I guess it was so hot that they couldn't go out. And in the World Trade Center, the windows don't open. They were very slight, tiny windows, and they don't open. So I guess they felt it was safer, or whatever they thought they were going to do, to continue to break the windows. So when we were walking, you would hear a thud, thud. You didn't know what it was until you looked to your left or to your right and forward, and they were just splat all over. It was like a war scene. It was just, for maybe 8 minutes is what I seen that, and then they escorted us away, and we headed towards the Brooklyn Bridge. And then at that point, we continued north, away from the building, and at that point we kept turning around. We seen the other building on fire. So, and then in going to the different bars and different news stations, there were no phones, there were no cell phones, because the largest cell phone tower was on Tower 1, so all cell phones were knocked out. So all communication to my family was none. There was 3 of us at the time, continued to walk north, and at that point we were walking along Fifth Avenue, really not knowing what's going on, and we kind of went to a bar or an eatery, and they had the TV on, and they were talking about the Pentagon and Tower 2, and really what was happening. You know, we started to unfold, and then the vivid thing that I remember was probably, because there were no mass transit, there were no buses, no trains, no planes, so we were stuck in Manhattan. I was stuck in Manhattan, no way to communicate to my family or my wife or my kids. We were stuck there. So I remember vividly hearing the F-16 fighter pilots, when it was so quiet, they were coming so low that the buildings would shake. So you knew they were around, and the firemen and the firefighters and everybody was just all chaotic fire sounds. So we just kind of worked our way up to Penn Station, and we hung out there. So then eventually the railroad and the transportation opened up, and I was able to come home and see my kids and stuff. So the initial reaction of most of the people, they just thought it was maybe a transformer, or, because in the skyscraper that big, we always had, not emergencies, but we always had incidents where power would go out, issues, we'd have floods. So we realized this was something a little bit bigger than that, with no communication, but we realized it was something going on. And then once we were asked to evacuate, I think most people realized when they looked up that this is not good. I was home around 6 o'clock. I did get in touch with my wife around Penn Station and let her know that I was alive. That was basically because we had to wait for a phone, and I waited about 30 minutes. And that was at the time they were payphones. They were payphones still, so we had to wait for that. And luckily we were able to get that. I didn't have my wallet. I didn't have any money. I didn't have my ID. It was all in my bag, and I didn't get it. I just left, and we ended up taking the railroad back, going back. Her mother, or my kid's grandmother, was watching. They live in Car Place too, so they were watching the kids. And Matt was probably, he was like in 3rd or 4th grade, so he really didn't comprehend really what was happening. So it was probably from like 8 o'clock to 6 o'clock until I got home. The next day, being part of the business continuity, I was picked up by a car service, and I had to go travel back to Newark, New Jersey, where we set up our business continuity, or our disaster recovery site, where people would begin to work. And we were familiar with this from '93, so we started all over, but it had just different magnitude, because of those 12 people that left, 4 of them didn't make it, and they died. 2 of them were found, 2 of them tried to take the elevator, and from what I was told, is when the jet plane hit the top, it acted like a chimney. So the jet fuel filled all the stacks of the elevator shafts, and they burnt instantly. And 2 of them they never found. So a lot of their bodies were, and if you look at the history, a lot of the floors, it compressed on itself. So between office furniture, concrete, lights, everything, they were crushed, and they were never found. The bodies were never found. They went missing, and they were just never found. So 4 of the people that were with us, so a third of the people that were kind of on our floor were missing and presumed dead. But 2 they did find in the elevators. I guess they tried to go to the elevator, and at that point, I guess when it opened up, or they got in it, it acted as a funnel, and the jet fuel caught fire, and just, but the other 2 didn't make it. So apparently, I guess they stayed there a little bit later, and when they collapsed, it crushed them. So when I got back home, we had to go back to Newark, New Jersey. We began a 2-week ordeal of ordering equipment and really just trying to digest what had happened, it was just so, I didn't realize what the magnitude it was at this point when we went back down there, probably sometime in December. They took us down for a viewing if we wanted to. And they had a stage we could overlook what was going on. Just the magnitude of the material that was down there was just incredible, incredible. And not realizing, I knew the world had changed at that point. It didn't understand until we were just so callous to it, because of seeing all that stuff and going through that and just trying to get over the trauma myself. I had to continue to work and really try to be there for my family, because a lot of the times they didn't really know if I was coming back again or what was going to happen again, and why you're going. And so it was a lot of mixed emotions, and there was counseling there, and it was just, it really took time to kind of, heal and understand the magnitude of what happened down there, and just the amount of people that passed away, because there were 3,000 people throughout the two buildings, or the concourse of the complex. And from everyday people to the workers. We had known some workers who apparently went up, figuring it'd be easier to escape. Maybe they get taken out by a helicopter, but it didn't happen. It ended up collapsing. So we went back there for about 3 or 4 months in Newark, New Jersey, ended up being relocated again to Madison Avenue, and then again to Union Square, New York, where we spent 14 years prior to this year as our temporary headquarters down at Union Square. So as they were building it, there was a lot of debate of what they should build. And, the Port Authority owns and operated, so it had a lot of intake with the families. The museum, the towers, the way they were, the infrastructure underneath, because it acts as a transportation hub underneath, and there's also a slurry wall that keeps the Hudson River from flooding downtown Manhattan. So there's a lot of architectural stuff going on, debris removal. You had the first responders, you had all the heavy equipment operators trying to get the debris out, getting it onto the barges and across to the Arthur Kill dump. And we had the opportunity to go over there, and there were some belongings of people that they thought it was ours, and everything was tagged and marked, and it wasn't actually ours, but we looked at it and we just verified it wasn't, from people's pictures. Some of the pictures didn't melt, to IDs, to keys, to briefcases, to photographs, and so that whole time, really, work was not in my forefront. It was just a matter of just trying to comprehend and understand this whole situation and how I was going to go forward. Because I always told myself I would never go back. I would never go back. And then 14 years later, we moved in April of 2015 to 4 World Trade Center. We occupy almost 1 million square feet in 4 World Trade Center, which is a smaller building. It's only 72 stories high, and it is diagonally across of 1 World Trade Center. Silverstein Property owns and operates that. We own and operate 1 World Trade Center. I don't know why we're not in that, the Freedom Tower or 1 World Trade, but we've been down there. There's 6,000 of us down there in the Port Authority. It's definitely different down there, because some people feel it is a gravesite, and from what I understand, in the museum there are people's ashes, and they're stored and secured and locked up. And like I said, the 4 people I knew, probably I lost about 9 friends total that I had some working connection with, and we went to their funerals after that, and that was the other thing, trying to grieve, trying to comprehend, trying to understand, and trying to go forward was all happening very quickly. We didn't have much time to understand. They wanted people working. We own and operate the 3 airports, the bridges, the tunnels, so we needed to keep them open. And so it was more of a economic situation where we had to continue to go forward. and trying to grieve. And they were good, but it was still a little stressful the first 6 months, 9 months, until you could really understand what happened and who, what, and where you lost people. And my brother-in-law, who married my sister, who was also a graduate of Carl Place High School in 1971, was a Port Authority cop. He wasn't a first responder, but he was involved with a lot of the bereavement of there were 43 Port Authority police officers that perished that day. Yeah, I had the first ceremony that I went to was this year. Normally I don't really get involved in that. I watch it, but I felt after the first couple of years on TV, you would find yourself glued. You'd find yourself just sitting in front of a TV for hours and hours. It's just kind of reliving the day, understanding where you were, who it was, seeing things that you knew. And even today, like on the History Channel, they'll play it around 9/11, and they're vivid. You know, the thing that I always remember was the day it was blue, and it was not a cloud in the sky. And every time you'd look up, oh wow, what a beautiful day. And then when you think of that, you know that that was the day that changed the way you look at. Became a little more callous, a little more hard and understanding of, you're always questioning people, looking at people, a little more suspicious, a little more apprehensive of different cultures. Definitely profiling is in my mind, without a doubt. Every day I look, if there's something that just doesn't smell right, look right, I just walk the other way. And, you know, they always say a cat has 9 lives. I got 2 done, so I got 7 more, and I don't want to be around there until I can move on. So the first ceremony, it was very, very somber. This one, not many people, from what I understand, the ceremonies have gone. They read the names of all the 3,000 victims, and then the family members can place roses and stuff on the memorial pools. A lot of the victims, being almost 14 years ago, their parents, grandparents are no longer here, so they passed away. So a lot of it was very, very quiet. There were some politicians and some government, people there. But for the most part, it's definitely a somber, more or less place for the families to do what they have to do. Since being down there, there was 2 bomb scares, and that's usually another sign too, is we have building evacuations and drills. One sound and the whole place clears out. The people are still there. So you gotta understand, I was younger at the time, so I'm at the tail end of my career. There are new people, your age, a little bit older, probably in their mid-20s, coming out of college and working for the port. They have no idea what 9/11 was, so they don't really know. So when you hear something hit the building or the building shake, because there's a lot of construction going on, immediately my radar goes up and saying, what's going on, what's happening, what's the problem? They're very nonchalant, not understanding, what's the matter? You look out the window, you ask questions, you come out of your office, you look around, and you're conscious of, where do I go? Can I leave? Can I run? Where's the safest route? Do I have my bag? Do I have my cell phone? So that's where I continue to struggle, is that, one drop of the hat, we leave. There were elevator problems about 3 weeks ago. I wasn't getting stuck. I didn't want to deal with it. So I left. And they're very good at that, because there's not many of us still working in the agency that experienced 9/11. So there's a lot of, history and culture that they don't really understand. And how did it affect my family? That's tough. I know Matt had more of a deep understanding of patriotism. I've seen it in some of his work and some of his mannerisms and stuff. Respects the flag a little bit more than I think most people. And my youngest son wasn't born at the time, so what I would tell people in Carl Place, like I said, it's the day things have changed, because it's kind of, for me, when you hear your parents say, where were you when John F. Kennedy was assassinated? You know where you are. You know exactly where you are, what you were doing, what you were looking at, and you understand the importance of the day the world for me changed, and the outlook of, not not backing down, but just kind of being a little more cautious, like a little free spirit. You would kind of walk around and understand and say, oh, not a problem, not a problem. Now everything is questioned, and why you're doing this and how, and that was for me. And I'm looking to finish my career. I'll be eligible to retire next year on May 31st or May 30th of 2016. So as soon as it's possible, I would like to move on out of there and move away from the World Trade. I love it. Out of respect, they've continued to honor the space, but it's very, very touristy, very commercialized. This summer, I took my family, my wife, my two sons to the 9/11 Memorial. And that was the first time I've ever been there. I never wanted to go. I figured that Gregory was 12 or 13, and he was able to kind of appreciate it. And it was hard. I could only stay maybe a half hour to get in there, because it just brought back so much stuff that I'd seen people's IDs that were rescued as artifacts, and it was just like, wow, I knew that guy. I knew this guy, and they have an area of all the victims in their pictures, and they've done a great job, because the people don't understand is that those pools are the actual footprints of the building. That's where the two buildings were situated, and if you go down there underneath, there's an actual, where they dug out the buildings, and so it brings back a lot of memories. Almost like someone robbing your house. They violated you, because that's what I called home for almost 20 some odd years. And we used to go up. I have pictures that were in the building. I used to go on the outside of the building, up to the top. They had the window washers, and I would sit in the window washer a quarter mile up in the air. And it was like the greatest feeling. You would look out, and it was just an amazing. There was a tightroper named Philip Petit. It was a French guy that used to walk between the two buildings on a wire. He initialed his names on the building, and we've seen all that. And it was a phenomenal place that we used to have, and go right around the holiday time. You talk about Christmas parties. Every floor would have a party. Every floor. You'd walk 110 stories, for every floor would have a different Christmas party. You'd walk the stairways. It was just big, and you were proud there. And it was just it was a sign of strength. And anytime you got lost in the city, you would look up, well, where are the trade centers? Okay, so now we're got to go downtown. So, once it kind of, took that away, it was just like, okay. It was anger, a lot of anger, why me, and then other times, like I said, why there were people, like I said, 4 people that I knew that I worked with are not here, because they went one way and I went the other way. I don't know. So, every day I look up, I look at that window, and it's where we went, and you see and hear the sounds. So it still resonates in me every day, and it's gotten, time is definitely, my memory and my actions have definitely become calmer and understanding, but it's still every day. It's tough to go there. It's very, there's a lot of construction. They're building 3 World Trade Center. They're building Oculus, which is a transportation hub. They have temporary path there, so they're going to be moving that out, and they're continuing the construction on the Greek church, which is on the side of the building. So I remember, has to be with Mrs. Zeminski, her English class. I brought them down there maybe with my nephew Patrick Shaw. He graduated 5 years ago, 6 years ago. I took them down there when they walked the site and stuff like that. So it was. It's gotten easier. Would I ever thought I'd work back there again? No, absolutely not. But I'm this close to retirement, and the only option for me was to work in New Jersey, and I didn't want to do that. And then the other side too was like, I didn't want to be scared. I didn't want them to change my life or say, hey, they won, they beat me, they scared me, because I think that's what they want. They want to scare you and intimidate you, and make you feel like, you know, you've lost it. And, you know, and again, I thank God for a lot of those firemen that gotten us out, and the civilian volunteers that directed us out, because I don't know if they ever made it. I can almost doubt that a handful of those firemen did not come out. Because, like you said, coming down and you could see the fear in their face, and the fear in both of us, you would just cross eyes and you would just go like, it doesn't look good. You know, there were people in wheelchairs. I don't know if they got out. I mean, I barely got out. But when I did, getting back to that, when I did get out, the buildings were still up. They were just burning, you know. And we were probably 2 miles away when we seen on TV they collapsed. I originally had thought I was going to go into the water when the whole building just took. I just thought everything, when I thought I was just going to go over, and that would be the end of it. And I thought I would just not wake up, and hopefully, I said to myself, hopefully it doesn't hurt. And then when it stopped and everything shook, that was it. And then we all just reacted. And like I said, it's been a slow, gradual process. It was nice to be away from downtown. We were in more of a nicer area, and then coming down, it's, you know, this will be my first holidays down there. You've gone through your first summer, first 9/11. The Pope was there. When there was recently with the people in Paris, there was a ceremony out there, because there's a tree. It's called a survivor tree. It's a different breed of trees that were done, which was taken out of the grounds. And it was the only tree that didn't get burned. They brought it to a farm in Pennsylvania, groomed it up, and then brought it back. And they call it the survivor tree, and it still sits there. And that's kind of a focal point of when people visit. So in France, they had a big ceremony for all the people of France, and then they laid roses and flags to remember the massacre in Paris recently. The other thing I found out while being down there over the summer is, if you're ever in the pools and you see white roses in the nameplates, it signifies the individual's birthday. So the museum keeps the name of all the 3,000 people and their birthday. So if your birthday is on December 2nd, they'll put a rose there and they keep it there. So it's kind of stuff like that I kind of got away from, but the museum was tough, and I would suggest if anybody does, it's definitely worth it for a history buff, and the only thing I think I'm missing, how did the 9/11 affect the community? I was kind of more isolated at that point, when I was really just trying to take care of myself. I really didn't get involved in the ceremonies, and I was really just trying to deal with myself and deal and grieve and understand really what the magnitude was, and just kind of comprehend, where am I going, what am I going to do, how am I going to, move on. Like, I didn't think I was going back to work. I didn't know where we were going. I was like, oh, it looks like I'm going to be out of work for a while. I didn't know I was going back to work the next day, and we had counseling and stuff like that, and I took advantage of that. And with my children, Matt really being the one, only just age appropriate stuff that he kind of knew. We really didn't let him watch the shows, and if he watched it, he did, but we didn't do it as a family. We didn't really, so I had to be strong for them and also strong for my wife, and to kind of figure out what was going on. I didn't know I was getting paid. I didn't know if I'm going to get, if I'm going to get paychecks, if I'm going to get insurance. I had no idea, but that was not an issue. They took care of all that, so that alleviated a lot of the pressure of, do I get my paycheck? Where do I get my paycheck? Am I, what am I doing? Where am I getting money? And so, but they were very, very good after that. So I can't say that, that they were very, very good. So we didn't miss a beat. I didn't miss a check. Nothing was interrupted. Whatever we needed, they gave us, and it was just a little bit towards, it's a political organization because it's run by the governors of New York and New Jersey, and I just think I'm a little, it took so long because everybody had an opinion, and if it was my choice, I would have built them just the way they were and put them back just the way they were and went back to it, but neither there or here, but the cleanup efforts, like I said, we got involved in, there was a company called Cantor Fitzgerald that was in there. A lot of their employees had died. We were in charge of the dump where like artifacts had come, and it was amazing that the stuff that survived. And I have a piece of steel at home that they gave me from the girders. We've had the inscribed on it, and so but that's like you said, it was from the history of understanding the way they built it, and it was amazing on how it really, because it was a fun place to work. It was a fun place to work, and now it's just more of a touristy, very very. Especially the memorial pools, they come there, and there's people from all over the country and tours and stuff. It's kind of like you're in a fishbowl. You're there, and everybody's looking at you, and so.